So, first week of summer break, pretty much all my friends had left for vacation, and I had nothing planned. So I decided to give this game a try called Dungeonborn. And I pretty quickly realized the first place on the leaderboard only had about 60 wins. In my mind, this was so reachable. And so I made it my mission to try to become the #1 player in this game. I did not know what I was getting myself into. But looking back at it, this was one of the craziest experiences I had. So if you want to join me and kind of like experience how it is to climb the ranks for the first time on the leaderboard, because I had never done something like this before, then I'd be really grateful if you want to watch till the end. Day 0. I only include this day because it's the day I found out about the game. And I played some matches. Not much happened, I only started learning the principles of the game. So there was some different game modes, like PvE, where you like hunt goblins and farm some loot. But the one that was interesting for me was the ranked mode, which was PvP. It was kind of like a Valorant, just in a medieval 3 vs 3 setting. After playing a bit, I concluded day 0 with a single win and 32 kills. This wasn't a promising start at all. But I was motivated and the game was fun, so I made it my goal to crack the top 100 by the next day. So the first thing I did when I woke up was start up the game and immediately get a false sense of security, because I checked the leaderboard and the first place still had the same amount of wins. So I was like, damn, this should be easier than I thought, right? Little did I know, the #1 player at this point wouldn't even be my greatest threat. And there was someone much more dedicated about to step on the scene. So this was really just the calm before the storm. At the beginning of each game, you can choose your loadout out of random items in these chests. And this was pretty confusing to me, since there were so many stats and attributes to get used to at first. But I quickly developed a liking for the lifesteal attributes. Still, in order to get a good build with lifesteal, I would have to rely on RNG pretty heavily, which meant my match results were pretty unreliable. But even with results this unreliable, I managed to pull off some insane games, even this early on. Like for example this one. Early into the match, my teammates both disconnected, leaving me alone against the full enemy team. Of course they tried to farm easy kills of my AFK teammates, but I wasn't having it. Time and again, I found myself in intense 1v3 battles, defending my team with everything I had. With every clash, I managed to hold them off, turning what seemed like a certain defeat into an epic standoff. Against all odds, I clutched it out and secured a draw, refusing to let them take the win.
Oh my god!
Obviously, I went to my brother and bragged about it. After getting destroyed a few times, I realized my slow longsword really wasn't cutting it, so I switched to the much stronger double blades, which also synergized perfectly with my lifesteal build. In this game you have many different classes, like mages, knights and druids, and I aimed to become the #1 Death Knight, otherwise DK. The DK can cast an AoE damage circle and has kind of a grappling hook hand that pulls enemies into it for maximum effect. All in all, this day was a massive improvement to day 0. Even though I was getting wins slowly, I was getting them much more consistently, finishing off the day with 9 wins and 108 kills. This put me far into the top 1000 among all classes, but much more importantly, it had made me climb up the ranks as a DK, almost cracking top 50 in terms of kills and becoming place 99 on wins. After breaking into the top 100 by hitting rank 99 yesterday, I woke up to find I had slipped out of it overnight. But this didn't really demotivate me. I knew I only needed a few wins to get back in. And I had already expected this, since most top players are in North America and I'm from Europe, so they grind while I sleep and vice versa. What really did scare me though was seeing that Cornelius, the previous #1, had been dethroned overnight by a guy named SmokeMTV. He gained around 25 wins in a single night, more than I had managed in 2 days combined. This was a wake-up call. If I wanted any chance to catch up and surpass him, with 80 wins separating us, I had to lock in and take this really seriously from now on. Remember that insane 1v3 clutch from yesterday? Well, I did it again. And this time it was even cooler, because for the first time, I truly experienced the full potential of my build idea. I got incredibly lucky with item spawns, stacking lifesteal on all my armor, giving me around 16 HP restored with every hit. Combined with my quick double blades and the AoE damage from my ability, I was a force to be reckoned with. Like, look at this. I just took down 3 enemies and my HP was still nearly full. Not gonna lie, after this I got kinda obsessed with my build, cause it was so satisfying to use. It wasn't all going smooth though. Whenever they managed to kill me, my teammates were left unprotected, leading to 2 free kills for the enemy. This kept the match close, but I maintained a steady lead throughout. Only reason I lost that lead was because in the last minute they managed to score out a draw, and this guy just shamelessly stalled by hiding behind this shield for what felt like an hour. If not for him being such a pussy, I would have managed to clinch a win. Sadly, I didn't get this lucky again with my build for the rest of the day, but what did happen was that I got matched with SmokeMTV. Yeah, that's right, the new #1 DK who had managed to take the throne overnight. I got kinda nervous and my heartbeat was becoming quicker. This was the guy who had overtaken the top spot overnight, and now I was about to face him directly. The stakes felt higher than ever. This was my chance to prove myself against the best. Even though we got paired in the same team, the enemies were only my secondary target, because I felt like I had to prove myself while playing with the #1 player in the world. Nevertheless, I could feel the gap between us, and when the stats finally appeared, it was pretty clear. SmokeMTV had completely bodied me. He had double my kills, triple my damage, and 6 times my heal. It was pretty humbling, like almost crushing to be honest. You know, but then I noticed something. He had 6k damage healed, and that wasn't at all typical for a DK, unless he was using a build pretty similar to mine. That realization reignited my determination. If SmokeMTV could dominate with this strategy, then I knew I was on the right path. It wasn't just about catching up anymore, it was about perfecting my approach and continuing the climb. Looking back, these early days were by far the most rewarding and motivating. Even 2 or 3 wins could jump you up 5 to 10 places on the leaderboard, because the competition was so tight. But this would change drastically once I reached the top 10, where climbing even a single rank could mean grinding for hours. That day I logged in like never before, playing well into the early morning. I racked up more kills and wins than on all previous days combined. This day catapulted me up the ranks, setting me apart from the casuals and into the elite. With 27 wins and 298 kills, I became 15th and 14th player in terms of wins and kills. But as I climbed, the journey transitioned from a motivating challenge to a real grind. Where 5 wins could once propel me up 10 ranks, now 10 ranks ahead of me were 25 wins away, about as much as I had earned in 3 days. Still, my improvement was exponential, from 1 win on day 0 to 9 on day 1 and now almost 20 on day 2. That had to mean something, right? But now there was no denying it. The rest of this journey would be a tough fought uphill battle. Day 3 would turn out to be by far the most crucial day of the journey. Overnight, SmokeMTV had racked up another 20 wins, and I got pushed down a few ranks again. I expected this, but it still hit hard. Determined not to fall behind, I dove into my routine. I turned on a podcast for my company and started grinding away. Despite being low on sleep, I was fueled by the grind. Then something unexpected happened. I got matched with this weird player named Catform. He was a druid. At first, I thought he was just another player who would disconnect at the start because he was just there AFK while I was busy picking out my build from the chest. But once the match began, he immediately transformed into a panther and charged the enemy base like a menace. Within seconds, he wiped out the entire enemy team before I could physically make it there. We pretty much spent the rest of the match just spawn killing the enemies and farming kills. Catform even went AFK at one point, letting us rack up kills completely for free. I mean, the results speak for themselves. Catform was just an entirely different breed from all the players I had met before. No one had ever been this strong, not even Smokem TV. Right after the match, I went and messaged Catform like the little cat. Like the little fanboy I was. And to my surprise, we actually talked a bit, and he revealed he was one of the best druid players in the world and had crafted a perfect build for himself. His success wasn't just about skill, it was about his meticulously planned build. For me, this was a wake-up call. If I wanted to compete with players like Smokem TV, I needed a build just as effective. I had the basics down, lifesteal and all, but I was still relying on random item drops to get the exact items I needed. So I had to use PvE mode to farm and loot. However, this meant sacrificing precious arena time. And on top of that, the items from PvE were often unreliable, mostly green and blue when I needed purple and with specific attributes. So I came up with a plan. I played PvE to gather items, which then I sold for gold to other players. Using this gold, I delved into the game's stock market. Yeah, there was a stock market. I just hadn't explored it much before because I was busy grinding arenas. But this strategy allowed me to invest in items critical for my build, balancing my time between trading, looting, and still grinding arenas. By the end of day 3, I really felt like I had transformed the game. Just look at my character before and after. If you're interested in my build, let me break it down for you. No, but really, if you're interested into the little details about how exactly my build works, I think at the end of the video, I'll do a little deep dive kind of into my build and how it synergizes and how exactly it works. For now, just know I pretty much had found the perfect balance between all different stats and set bonuses, and I had a completely busted lifesteal build at this point. And with this completely busted setup, my win rate also skyrocketed. I finished the day with 87 wins and 959 kills, landing comfortably in the top 5. This was a massive improvement from the previous days. Looking back at it, this was pretty much the peak of my powers. I had gone all out this day and like always had played until 4 AM. The sleepless nights hadn't caught up to me yet and exhaustion hadn't set in yet. And I was confident that with this build, reaching number 1 was within reach. But the real challenge was still ahead. The next days would test everything I'd achieved so far. And I knew they'd make the past 3 days seem like a warm-up. I woke up that day and I felt pretty awful, to be honest. I was tired and I just felt greasy. Even though I went all out yesterday and I was tired as fuck, I was still not even halfway there. In the first place, Smokem TV just kept gaining more and more wins each time I went to bed. But you know, there was no way I would even consider giving up this far. I mean, I had just reached top 5 the day before, and while I was feeling physically drained, I was still very dedicated mentally. The good news? Being in the top 5 meant that even though people were catching up overnight when I couldn't play, the fact that the difference between 2 places was now much higher meant you would also lose much less progress overnight. So I opened the game and I was actually surprised to see that I was still number 5. And even better, there was only 1 win between me and the 4th. So now pretty much for the 4th day in a row, I fall back into my routine of grinding arenas and slowly start climbing up the ranks. I reached number 4 pretty quick, since I literally needed a single win, and therefore surpassing Cornelius. Yes, the former number 1, who had only been dethroned. Yes, the former number 1, who had only been dethroned 2 days prior by Smokem TV. Since then, a few more people had made their way into the top 5 though. The 3 people who were the biggest rising stars, and therefore the prime contenders for number 1 spot, were now me, currently on 4th place, a guy called Swerve, the number 3 who had been hovering in the top 10 for a few days now, and someone called Lola Terror, or Lolater, the current number 2. The guy called Swerve was really within my reach, only ahead of me by like 3 wins. But Smokem TV and Lolater had really managed to separate themselves from the rest, both standing at 110 and 140 wins respectively. Compared to my measly 88, that just seems so difficult to reach. Like they must really be in their league of their own skill and build wise. Not to mention that Smokem TV had absolutely bodied me just 2 days prior. But still, 2 days ago when I got paired with him in a match, he was where I am now at 88 wins, and a lot had changed since then. I met cat form and completely transformed my build, so if I just manage to outpace him from now on, it should be doable. By now, what would a day be without a match where my teammates disconnect instantly and leave all the fun to me alone, right? But I felt it this time. It would be different. And actually, what followed is probably the best example for how much I had improved over the days. This was a beautiful combination of my skill, my build, and the experience and confidence I had in my abilities. And I actually managed to win the 1v3, all on my own. I think my reaction speaks for itself.
Bitte, Junge. Bitte. Bitte. Viel Zeit haben sie nicht mehr. 11 Sekunden. Ich schwöre bei Gott. Ich verteidige euch. Oh mein Gott. 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 Oh mein Gott, wie kann man so scheiße sein?
And this wasn't even the best match I had on day 4. Still, it kinda hurts me to say, I'll be honest. Over the course of these 5 days, I've recorded so much, like literally around 200 gigabytes space worth of recording. And yet, I was kinda cursed that I feel like 90% of the best moments and matches were not recorded. Or some recordings sadly became corrupted, like for example a match where I was paired with number 2, Lolater, or Lolater. Or one where I played against Smokem TV, the number 1. But I'll do my best to explain to you what happened in these matches. And I have the screenshots of the endgame at least. So the match with Lolater was pretty unspectacular, cause I mean, if you put number 2 and 3 worldwide in a team, what do you expect would happen? We won. And even though he was number 2 and I was number 3, I was surprised. This wasn't at all reflected in the match results. I had more than double his damage, a better KD, more kills, and 9 times as much heals. It really riddled me how he got to number 2 and was so dominant. He was good in combat though, like he used the greatsword, which you can parry with, which is hard, but it pays off if you're good. And he was good, but he wasn't great. But my guess was that he, just like me, grinded his soul out playing this game, cause other than that, he didn't really have any huge qualities. So I keep playing, but then right as I was about to pass 100 wins, I get into the probably most intense match of the whole journey. My team runs up the ramp of this map, trying to establish early pressure in the center. While I was busy fighting 2 of the enemies, the third one somehow got past me and killed both my teammates. First I was like, damn, my team is bad. But after I had killed those 2 enemies and I went to take out the guy who had killed my team, we went face to face with each other, both with double blades in hand, full comboing each other multiple times until one of us finally goes down. That one being me. And so from this point on, I immediately understood this guy is not a joke. And if I leave my team unprotected to this menace, we're gonna lose. So I keep defending my team the rest of the match, and the scores stay pretty even throughout. Since this match was so intense, I pretty much only focused on combat. It wasn't until like the last quarter of the match or something where I finally checked the kill feed and realized this is Smokem TV I'm going against. And immediately I felt the pressure on me. If I win this match, that means I really have what it takes to be number 1. But if I lose, I would be crushed. It would mean that even after all I've done, I still didn't stand a chance against my greatest rival. From this point on, I teabagged him every time I killed him to display dominance. And like a true sweat, he did the same thing back to me. This, as stupid as it sounds, was a great way for me to deal with the pressure and keep my composure. And with the seconds ticking down, and the leading team switching every other moment, in the last 10 seconds, I deliver the final crushing blow to Smokem TV, killing him and therefore securing the win for my team, teabagging his lifeless body as the timer ends the match and declares our team victorious. Max Holloway said, to be the best, you gotta beat the best. And I just beat the best. Nothing could better describe how close this matchup between us was. And the stats. We had the same amount of kills. I had more damage dealt and also less damage taken, but he had a better KD than me and had also out-healed me by 1000 damage. And if you pay attention to our teammates, both of us completely carried our team. After the match, I messaged him in-game, saying, "I'm coming for your number 1, boy." But we had a bit of a friendly chat. And then, after another match, I got kinda weirded out, cause this guy just randomly added me on Discord, and I didn't even give him my name. But he seemed friendly, so I accepted. He asked me for my build, but I didn't give it to him, cause Catform had actually warned me to not give my build to anyone. So I just told him, our builds are probably similar, and then I noticed his bio. And it was literally just a YouTube link, so I clicked on it. And I immediately realized why this guy was number 1. Bro, this guy, he's serious about it. Like he's not playing around. I think that can be said. This guy is competitive. He knows it's on. So. But I respect it, it's just a bit funny, yeah. Yeah, it was one of those guys. His bio literally was a link to a playlist called Beast Mode. This was probably what he listened to while grinding for hours on end. This absolute masculine pack leader of an alpha male. So yeah, this just got serious. Cause I knew I didn't have this kind of mindset. I was more like, I mean, how hard can it be, right? While this guy was absolutely determined to crush everyone between him and the number 1 spot. So I knew if I wanted to stand a chance, I actually had to push myself to the limits on this last day. Also, this was the point where I kinda started regretting saying to him, "I'm coming for your number 1, boy," cause he wouldn't make it easy for me at all. And this might have just given him even more motivation. The fact that I was always playing into the early morning meant that during the last hours that I was playing, the other top 2 were already awake, and so they managed to kind of maintain their lead. Even though I was able to catch up a significant amount, clocking in on number 2 at the end of day 4, even with a comfortable lead ahead of LolAtor, with 153 wins and 1,820 kills. So here we are, day 5, undoubtedly the last day of this epic journey. If you stuck around this long, I can't thank you enough. Now let's finish what we started. For one final time, I dragged my sleep-deprived, broken body out of bed. Checking the leaderboard, I saw some mixed news. LolAtor had overtaken me again, pushing me to 3rd place. Not surprising, but still a blow. The real challenge though was Smokem TV, who had a 22-win lead. It wasn't impossible to reach at all, but it was still daunting. I kicked off my day with the same grind as usual, but at this point, my enthusiasm and the motivation that I had felt previously was gone. I didn't want to do this anymore, but I pretty much had to. Giving up was not an option. It would mean everything I had done would have been for nothing. and the 15 to 17 average hours of daily grind wasted. But for some reason, this stage just wasn't the same. I was playing sloppy, I got irritated quickly, and just wasn't nearly as consistent in performing. As stupid as it sounds, I disconnected out of many matches because I just perceived them as lost, and I didn't have the patience to put up with them till the end. Whereas before, I would always put up a fight, refusing to disconnect and fighting, if not for the win, at least for the kills. Somehow I kept playing though, and ended up amassing a total of 7 wins after exhausting hours of playing. But I think this was actually what I needed to retain my grip. Now, only 15 wins behind the first gave me a very feasible number of what I had left. I told myself I could get 5 wins, take a quick break, get another 5, rest again, and then push for the final 5 to finally break that curse that I had put onto myself. And so I pushed. For one final time, I pushed my sleep-deprived body to queue up for these final 15. The first 5 wins actually turned into 7, because I wanted to prove to myself I could pass my limits one more time. So I took a quick break and got back to the monitor and played. 8 more wins turned into 7, then 6, and 7, and 7. Wait, I wasn't stupid, right? I wasn't hallucinating, I wasn't that exhausted yet, but the 6 wins that I needed had just turned into 7. Yeah, that's right, I had taken so long that Smokem TV actually woke up and started playing. Like, what I felt in this moment, there's just no words for it. I was devastated, because I knew if he sees that there's only 6 wins between us, he would make sure to secure his first place for good once more. And I was just sitting there contemplating. I didn't want to believe it. But somehow, I made the decision to keep going. I was at my limit, but there was simply just no way I would go to sleep now, letting him build as much of a lead as he wanted. I just knew I had to finish this today, and I didn't have another day in me, so I kept playing. At this point I felt like a zombie, honestly, numb and only chasing the light at the end of the tunnel. But after playing some more, I had actually managed to catch up by another win. The lead he had was still shrinking, even though we were both playing. If one of us lost a match, that was the chance for the other one to catch up or build a lead. So it literally came down to who was better and more consistent. I just couldn't let myself lose, even once. No matter how tired I was, I had to win. This was my only chance. Every match felt more like a battle against my own exhaustion more than a battle against the actual enemies. Hours of playing blurred together, and at one point, even LOL Ater started playing. But no one really gave a fuck about him anymore, cause we completely left him behind at that point. So we managed to get a score of 178 wins to 183. Had he not started playing that day, I would have already surpassed his initial lead by 3 wins. But he did. Even though I noticed he had to have been tired too, cause he was also playing quite sluggish and making progress quite slowly. I only kept myself in the race by telling myself that it's only 5 more wins, and I had done that easily so many times before. But in reality, I didn't know how many more wins I needed. It depended entirely on him and how much he could keep playing. But luckily for me, he literally went on a losing streak. And slowly but surely, I managed to eat away at that 5-win lead he had. And finally, after playing this game, amassing over 80 hours in just 5 days, and yeah, that's an average of 16 hours a day, making new friends and enemies, I managed to climb the ranks out of close to 1 million players, all the way to the top, surpassing Smokem TV, the most dominant #1 DK up to that point, and becoming the best player in the world. If only for a few hours. Cause right after I woke up the next day, well, you know, business as usual, but it was enough for me. If you would have asked me back then how I felt now that I was #1, you probably would have given me a mental breakdown. Cause I felt empty, and I didn't really understand why. I had worked so long to reach the light at the end of the tunnel that I promised myself. But once I got there was no light. It didn't even feel real, to be honest. I was just happy that it was over. Looking back at it though, I've actually grown to appreciate it. I'm recording this pretty much 1 month after reaching #1, and I realized that what I felt back then was actually pretty accurate of how I should feel. Cause even now, the joy and appreciation I have doesn't come from me having been the #1 for what? Maybe a few hours? It comes, as cliche as it might sound, from the journey itself. Reaching #1 wasn't the highlight. It was merely what closed the chapter and gave the story before it its meaning and its point. I feel good about it now because I believed in myself and actually accomplished what I had set out to do. I was motivated at the fast progress I made at first and resisted quitting even when it became borderline torture. That's what it's about, not the number on the leaderboard, but the growth and determination in my mind.